What's going on, gamers? We got some interesting, let me see, fact checking and analysis debates going on here on Twitter, starting with what was posted yesterday about how the PS6 jump from PS5 is not as powerful as people think. They were trying to say it's only like a ×2 or ×3 jump between RDNA 2, which actually is RDNA 1.8 if you think about the beginning. RDNA 2 was on the Series X, but even then, the generational difference between RDNA 2 and RDNA 5 is already massive. Like Moore's Law is dead is saying here, because a lot of people were having some debates here, which we're going to discuss right here on this thread. Because he says PS6 can achieve the numbers AMD claims. RDNA 4 did it before it. We're talking about RDNA 4, not RDNA 4 feet. Check the attached images. AMD claimed RDNA 4 doubles the ray tracing of RDNA 3. The RX 9060 XT RDNA 4 is nearly the same specs as the RX 7600 XT RDNA 3. They have the same Q count, keep in mind CUDA count, amount of infinity cache, amount of ray tracing accelerators, and memory bus bandwidth pretty much. Indeed, the 9060 XT only has 14% more teraflops and 12% more bandwidth. Nearly the same GPU besides architecture. Yet in Alloy 2 path tracing, the 9060 XT over doubled the performance of the RX 7600 XT. This is something to think about because PlayStation is using AMD as well. That means the RDNA 4 is 2 times RDNA 3 in ray tracing claim was accurate in this game. So I want you to think about that when we're going from the base PS5 to RDNA 2, not even full RDNA 2, to RDNA 5. For PS6, how would it only be ×2 when you're jumping 3 generations of RDNA? Because the people that were posting those claims are absolutely inaccurate. And even if you want to say ×3, it's like, what are you talking about? No, that's not the way it works. That's why this thread is up here. It's about to get more interesting here in a second, though. He says that means RDNA 4 is 2 times RDNA 3 and ray tracing claim was accurate. However, in some games, the bottleneck isn't ray tracing, so it doesn't double performance. Numbers don't lie. Anyone who acts like PS6 can, in some scenarios, 10 times the performance of the PS5 must have missed RDNA 4 benchmarks last year. AMD's already proven their GPUs can attain the ray tracing increases they claim in documents. Like you said, AMD is saying this. And it's going to be interesting to see that presentation when Mark Cerny comes out too, because you know he's going to have to do that for the PS5. He does that all the time. So we're going to get a lot of math there as well. And then Moore's Law is going to get more credit. I mean, he does a lot of work for this type of stuff. I don't see a lot of other people doing it as much as he does. He does a good job with it. AMD claims massive improvements for RDNA 5 in documents. Yeah. Just like they did with RDNA 4. I have these documents, clearly unlike some people, he's claiming. Because like I said, there's a big war going on. Just furthermore, if you think Sony's first-party devs won't build their games to maximize the strength of the PS6, you're basically an idiot. And this is true because if you look at what Naughty Dog was able to achieve in the PS3 era, and how they continue to go, look at the PS4 era, it's absolutely insane. I mean, when you just look at the first-party devs this generation, look at Insomniac games now that they're with them, look at their games. Look at Ghost of Tsushima to Ghost of Yote. You see what I mean? All Sony first-party games have insane engines and amazing performance, and they look like movie-like experiences. And all their developers make games that look incredibly good. That's something I would say, yeah, that's actually very true. So why would they not maximize the strength of that for PS6? Was like, look at what's going on with PS5 Pro and PSSR 2 right now, and how it's matching stuff on PC where you're like, man, for that price point, that's crazy. You could imagine with the PS6, it's going to blow things out of the water. It says, or desperate to start flame wars for attention. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. Microsoft devs will do the same for Helix too. This case is closed. And he puts a closed door right there. He's kind of trying to say this because he's trying to make a certain statement here. The comments are going to get interesting. He says, by the way, I literally explained this already in my video, which he did. If you want to take a look at that video, where it has like Xbox Helix analysis and all that other stuff. But it is interesting when you really think about the comparison of Alan Wake 2, and he said path tracing. So yeah, that's a huge thing right there. So it's not an argument of whether the PS6, if you understand that it's using RDNA 5, is going to do more than double the performance. Of course it is. Are you kidding me? It's going to be astronomically improved. So he posted screenshots down here. And if you take a look at the 9060 XT Swift, 16 gigabytes, has 32.4 frames per second. The 9060, 16 gigabyte has 31.3 frames per second. If you go all the way down, you can kind of look and see what GPU is the PS5 using. If you're able to do that and you even look at what's available now, that gives you an idea already what RDNA 5 is going to be able to do. And things will get better by then. There'll be PSSR 3. I mean, people are not factoring in like what else could be around the corner with frame generation in Sony's own way. They may call it something different. This is the thing, you don't know that, right? So I'm thinking that the difference is going to be bigger than we imagine. And by the time we get to that and see what other features are there, because we have to see more features. We have to see how Sony's going to implement frame gen. I think they're going to announce that next year. They are. I mean, Mark Cerny said not this year, so because they're busy like maximizing PSSR 2, but it's more about, no, we're working on PSSR 3 while we stop. That's like saying NVIDIA and AMD would have stopped at, you know, whatever they were on FSR at the time. You know what I mean? No, you just keep going. That's how it works. And then you'll see ray reconstruction and all that stuff, ray regeneration come to PS6. The Mr. Enigma says, big difference between 2 times and 10 times. True. Morrislav says, the claim for PS6 over PS5 isn't 2 times. That's what I'm saying. There was a new thread coming up saying that people were making up stuff. It's like, I don't think so. So if you say that too, that means you're kind of attacking Moore's law analysis. Of course he's going to come out because it's like, you're practically calling me out. RDNA 4 over RDNA 3 was 2 times. So if I'm going to RDNA 2 to RDNA 5, you could at least say, man, at least 5 to 6 times more, no matter what. It ain't gonna just be 2 times. We're not talking about RDNA 3, which PS5 isn't, and neither is Xbox Series X. They were RDNA 2 or somewhere close to RDNA 2 on PlayStation, where Sony kind of did like a checkerboard thing with that. You're going from like that 1.8 all the way up to 5. It's massive. They didn't say 4, no, 5. That was one architecture jump. PS6 goes from RDNA 2, not RDNA 4, to RDNA 5. This is what we're talking about. They keep on looking at something else. No, dude, we're talking about PS5 architecture to RDNA 5. That is 3 architecture jumps. It also has 50% more compute units and higher clock speeds. This guy says RX 9060 XT has 2 times 2 the transistor count of RX 7600. He says, yes, and the PS6 will have substantially more transistors than the PlayStation 5. Duh. Yeah, literally. So I don't even know why he said that comment, because it's like, no, dude, we're talking about, once again, RDNA 2 to RDNA 5. So I don't get why comparing things closer is going to make any argument valid if you wanted to post a comment about that when we're talking about something much farther away, 3 generations back. So he says, I've been watching you for over a decade. The PlayStation flattery arc you're on is definitely not my favorite. It's interesting because he's just trying to share stuff. So I just hope Crimson Desert will be updated for PS6 and be able to run path tracing cinematics at 120 Hz. Of course it's going to get updated. I mean, that's obvious. AMD isn't going to beat or even match, here goes an NVIDIA guy, an RTX 5090 in ray tracing in the mid-range by some kind of magic. Lay off the pipe, dude. What are you talking about? Who's talking about the RTX 5090? What does that have to do with anything? Dude, you know what's so funny? They're even talking about the Helix being like a 5080 up in that bracket, but I don't understand. We're talking about AMD here. Why is he bringing that up? Because in order for AMD to get something like an RTX 5080 or 5090, they have to release a card in that bracket. They have not been doing that. So I think that is an irrelevant comparison because you're going way off. Like, the PS6 is going to have something where it's like, okay, look at what AMD is doing with that jump. So now have some cards that are going to be ahead of that or beat that. You know what I mean? I think that's eventually what they're going to do. But this comment is irrelevant. The problem with the last statement is cross-gen, and that was especially apparent with Gran Turismo 7 on PS4 and PS5. The PS4 held back every big potential with the PlayStation 5 version, not letting it be what it needed to be. Here's the thing with that now, what I think developers have learned that I kind of want to share. If you think about what Capcom said about their engines compared to before, that how were you able to get the RE engine to run 60 frames per second on the Switch 2 and Pragmata? And Capcom said, this is the difference. If you know how to make your engine scalable and design it the right way, it doesn't matter. We didn't make that engine based off of a certain console to where you had to like make it much more difficult. We made the engine so it could be scalable from top to bottom. So it doesn't really matter. If your engine is good enough, you could put it all the way down You know, on toaster settings. I'm just saying I have to say that in a certain sense and scale all the way down to the Steam Deck and then go high all the way up to the max settings. It depends if your engine is next gen or not, and would you be able to scale that? Capcom has proved that. You know what I mean? It's like, why is Switch 2 still? We're talking about Switch 2 technology using something like Resident Evil 9 on it, you know what I mean? And Pragmata and playing all these other games. It's like, yeah, dude, it depends on your engine. It depends on you. So I don't think that's necessarily the case because PlayStation engines are specifically always designed for the PlayStation architecture. And since it's all AMD straight up and it's going to be exclusives only, meaning only in the ecosystem, it doesn't matter. They'll just scale that up and scale that down. Just saying, just like when you see PS5 Pro difference from PlayStation 5, significant difference. We see that now with PSSR 2. So, I mean, the jump difference is going to be insane because you could imagine saying, you know what? I want to see what's going to happen when I get something like Intergalactic because it's a Naughty Dog game. You don't think the engine's going to be incredible? And then I put Intergalactic on PS6. Watch this. Like, damn, man, look how much more aspects I got to it. That's literally all that is. That's no longer really plausible anymore because, like I said, developers have learned a lot of things this generation when it comes to that. So, of course, AMD is still behind in penetration compared to NVIDIA. Yeah, but over time, that's going to be fixed. I can promise you that. So I want you guys to let me know what you think about this. Leave a comment down below as usual. Like, comment, subscribe. Have a good day. Keep gaming no matter what platform you're on. Peace.